Hey, kids, welcome to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology, and Dreams with your host, Dr. Michael Lennox. As ever, I'm here with producer Zoe. We're coming at you for the week of August 8th through August 15th.
Hi, listeners.
Yes, hey, Zoe. How you doing in this fixed heap of non-movement fixed energy?
I'm doing okay.
You're doing okay. All right, cool. We're halfway through. In fact, we're going to talk about the full moon this week because we got a full moon this coming Thursday, which is the halfway mark of this fixed Grand Cross oriented lunar cycle. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what fixed energy is and how the setup in the cosmos right now really puts us in direct contact with a difficult fixed energy at the same time when one of the corners of that fixed energy that's holding up the cosmos this month has the outrageous movement energy of Uranus conjunct the North Node, which is not a fixed sensation at all. That's like movement and fast and sudden explosive sense of movement in the planet Uranus's consciousness. But there's what's called a fixed grand cross in the sky that was part of the Leo new moon that kicked off this lunar cycle that is in place this entire month. And there's some ways in which it's peaking this week vis-a-vis the sun's movement. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what fixed energy is, what a fixed grand cross is, and how what the sun is doing this week is distinct from what the fixed energy was with the new moon last week, where we set intentions under this energy, but that this is a week part and parcel to an intense full moon. This is a week where we're going to be confronting places of stuckness and conflict that come with delays and breakdowns that fixed energies tend to bring. So fixed energy refers to what's called a modality. There are 3 modalities in astrology, which means that every sign is going to be one of these 3 things, either cardinal, fixed, or mutable. So every sign of the 12 is either a cardinal sign, a fixed sign, or a mutable sign. So the cardinal energies of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, the 4 cardinal signs. Everybody's going to get what cardinal means because when the Earth and the Sun and these particular cardinal signs line up, that's the beginning of a season. So each of the seasons begins with a cardinal energy, and therein lies the sort of referential sensation of cardinal signs is initiatory, thrusting forward, the beginnings of. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn all have that energy built into them, even though they're each a different element of fire, water, air, and earth. They all have the energetic quality of movement, initiation, and forward trajectory. Now, if you move a little further and go to the mutable signs are the energies of fluidity and flexibility and shift, because without that, we don't have anything, right? We can't do anything unless we can start it up, and then we can't move anywhere with consciousness unless there are things that are able and willing to shift, change, to be flexible, to move around and change shape. So the shapeshifter mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And so those are the archetypal blocks that we build things with when we need energies that are able to, morph and create flexibility, fluidity, and change in that way. Now, of course, if you don't have foundation, you can't build anything that's solid or lasting because we need that. So you've got the third sort of element of all creation when you're talking about modalities is the fixed signs. So this is Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius.
Yes.
Woo, Leo, woohoo! So fixed energies are not bad. They are just different from startup energies or fluid energies. They're not cardinal signs and they are not mutable signs. They are important to be present when you want to build something that lasts. The challenge comes when you're looking to either move something forward and start it up or change something in a kind of dynamic, fluid sort of way. Fixed energies inhibit both starting up and, fluid change. So great for foundation and structure and building something on top of a solid sort of floor below you so that it will last. The challenge is they are energies that are immovable and, well, fixed.
And so right now we're in that
Yeah.
immovable energy.
Yes. And so the two sort of sides of this immovable energy are the nodes of the moon. So one corner of this fixed square that we're in is just the past as a concept, that we are stuck in the past. South node is in Scorpio, which is the archetype of death and rebirth, which means that even though we're stuck in the past, we do have the capacity through the archetype of Scorpio to die and be reborn to that past so that we can let it go. The other side of the cosmos, Taurus, is the other corner, the fixed sort of Taurus corner of this current month's square, is where Uranus and the North Node are banging us forward into the future like on a bazooka. And Mars swiping by last week grounded that fixed solid energy into our personal experience of us trying to create things of importance and of lasting, value, emphasized the sort of solidity of that Taurus mansion, which is an immovable mansion inside of which the planet that says anything can happen and probably will. And if there's some instability in the room, Uranus is going to feature that, right? So it's a fixed energy, but it's one that has a lot of rumble in it. Hence, this last couple of weeks have had a lot of sort of rumble in our bodies. I've heard from lots of you talking about, frustration and anxiety and free-floating sense of buzz. That's that corner of the Grand Cross. So the other side, or the sort of, cross-hatching archetype is your sun sign and my sun sign. It's Aquarius and Leo. Right? So that's the other two fixed signs that are creating this grand fixed cross. The Aquarius portion of the fixed cross is Saturn. So that Saturn is in this mix of the month's difficult, 90-degree geometry means lessons are everywhere. Nobody is escaping Saturn-like lessons in this lunar cycle, even if Saturn isn't touching your chart directly, where you might be having an easier year than I am because I'm in my frickin' Aquarius Saturn return. The fact that Saturn is in this grand fixed cross this month during a lunar cycle that activated it means nobody is escaping the Saturnian karmic lessons. The lessons will be yours personally because we each get our own list of the things we have to struggle with and work with. But that we are learning lessons through delay, conflict, and obstacle this month, nobody's escaping from with Saturn in Aquarius. So it's the Leo sun that's making the fourth corner of the grand fixed cross. So this entire lunar cycle, led by the new moon in Leo 2 weeks ago, is generating a sense of new possibilities and a start up of a greater self-expression in that Leonian kind of way, but not without the obstacles, breakdowns, and delays that Saturn might be throwing in our wake to say, are you committed to this? Do you feel strongly enough about the creative processes you are ushering into existence that you are a yes, even when you bump into the wall of delay, breakdown, and challenge? So the fixed Grand Cross doesn't mean things we intend at this time can't happen, but they might require that sort of passageway through. I like to say the Plato Fun Factory of changing our shape a little bit as we stay committed to the desires of our hearts to be more expressive, more creative, and more powerfully in leadership in our experiences. But we're gonna bump into the places and the ways in which the world or other people might say no. And with the sun moving into an opposition with Saturn this week, while we're in a full moon and peaking over the weekend, this entire week features our conscious awareness really seeing what the lessons are going to be. This is not the busiest, bumpiest, craziest week. Those 2 weeks are behind us. But in some ways, in terms of looking out at the landscape of your life and saying, I can make sense of this, I know what's happening here, this is the week that the fixed Grand Cross sort of perfects itself in shape based on the sun's movement. And because the sun brings conscious awareness, this is the week through the weekend and the intense release mechanism that the full moon's going to bring is the week where we get to see what do we have to face in our lessons in order to generate the yummy abundance, prosperity, self-expression, and expansion that we are intending at this time.
While we're in a fixed time right now, does that affect people differently, whether you're mutable, fixed, or cardinal? So say you're a cardinal sign, are you affected differently
Oh,
than you are not a
yes,
fixed signs?
yes. That's a great question, too. Anybody with fixed sign sun consciousness, right? So Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus, we already understand the fixed sensibility. We actually think of it as ourselves. We are a little more fixed and a little less flexible
Hmm.
and a little less startup. Well, and then the quality of those personality types bears that those sun signs tend to be.
Mhm.
Certainly, people who are more governed by mutable signs, either by their sun sign or lots of planetary placement in mutable signs, are always going to have an easier experience of running up against obstacles. Because the mutable signs understand what it's like to be water around stone, that water fluidly moves around stone. I don't mean to confuse you with an elemental analogy, but the idea is that any mutable focus in a chart is going to allow that person to shift, pivot, adjust more easily. I think the cardinal signs probably have the hardest time with fixed energy because cardinal moves and fixed doesn't, and those are more confrontational to each other. So a full moon in fixed signs, while also participating in a square of those fixed signs to create a grand cross, is certainly it's an uncomfortable energy because full moons are about release. Squares imply conflict and obstacle energy. So it's not a smooth releasing and letting go of things. It's not an easy process of letting go of unconscious impulses that no longer serve. There may very well be a just generalized, bumpier, sort of challenging full moon energy just because of the fixed grand cross in the sky with the sun in Leo and the moon 4 degrees, 3 degrees away from Saturn. So this is a Saturnian full moon, which means it means business. Leo is where we shine brightly, but the shadow artifact of Leo is too much focus on self. That fixed Leo energy is one of the problems of the Leo archetype, where there's such an emphasis on me and my sort of specialness that when we connect with the opposite sign of Aquarius, that's all about the community and service and what the world needs. Now we're in an interesting sort of moment of, well, what are we letting go of in the Leo mansion in order to serve with more humility? And rather than answer that question, that's the question that we should all be asking ourselves during this full moon is like, what ideas about who I am needs to be let go of so that I can trek more powerfully into how who I am fits into what the community needs of me. Leo serves the self, Aquarius serves the community, and putting them together sets up a full moon where we want to practice gratitude for all of the ways that we already understand who we are and how we serve, and recognizing how you already understand your creative gifts to serve the world. The gratitude portion of the full moon will be pummeled, I think, by the release portion of it. So I've already mentioned that Saturn is participating in this full moon by being very close to the moon. So lessons are up. The great teacher is guiding this whole full moon process. And so what I want to say to all of you, especially people who are listening, you've been on this path for a little while. You know what your Saturn lessons are. Nobody's listening to this podcast going like, well, what does he mean by I'm working on myself? I don't appeal to the newbies, I don't think. I mostly speak to people who are well entrenched in this path. So Saturn and the new moon conjunct means it's karmic, there are lessons, and nobody escapes. Chiron is doing something very interesting with the South Node as part of not only the month of August, but also peaking in this full moon. Chiron in conjuncting the South Node, that's the great eliminator angle. That's a perfect little tool stuck in the middle of this crazy full moon that is designed to carve out old patterns from the past and let them go. The South Node holds our baggage. Chiron understands our baggage from the moment we took our first breath, and probably before that from, environmental conflict in your home while you were in mommy's womb. Right? So Chiron knows all about the life of wound. Saturn knows all about the lessons, and they're both active in this full moon, increasing the capacity to allow this lunation to let things go that have been keeping a drag on the system in terms of allowing us to be more creatively expressive and serve the community as a result of knowing what our gifts and talents are. One of the big things astrologically in the week is also part of the full moon experience, because 3 hours before the full moon is exact, Venus is going to move from Cancer into Leo. So first of all, let's just talk about that for a minute, that as we're looking to be in a full moon release experience, the planet that rules our emotional body is going to be in the most gender mansion there is for feelings at the personal level, Cancer, into a mansion that's probably the least personally, vulnerable, Leo. So we'll talk about the impact of Venus in Leo for the next 3.5 weeks, but let's just try to unpack this sort of impact of the sign change of Venus while the full moon is amplifying. Number one, full moons are simply intense, amplified energies. At least that's how I experience them. Like, I don't ever have to take a new moon off. I'm never in an energetic way of waking up on a new moon going, holy shit, I should have blocked this day off because I'm overwhelmed with energy. But I feel that way under the full moon so often. I've taken to blocking full moons off my work schedule a year in advance. In fact, part of the challenge I had with 22 is I didn't do that because I was so busy as 21 was becoming 22 that I didn't mark those days off. And there were 3 or 4 or 5 full moons already this year that I was scheduled to work, and I had to cancel because I got overwhelmed with energy because the full moon is just a bigger wave than the new moon is. And this changing of the signs of the planet that rules our emotional body while the lunation is building, think is going to create an emotional intensity.
Okay.
That's just a general, it's gonna be an emotional week. For one thing, when a planet is at the final sign of any sign, it embodies that sign's energy to the fullest. So just the fact that from the end of the day on Wednesday through Thursday, all day long, up until 3 hours before the full moon hits in the afternoon Pacific time, Venus is at the mastery degree of Cancer, the most sensitive, tender, vulnerable sign of the zodiac. So yeah, it's our emotional body's going to shift quite dramatically with this sign change, but it's not like we're going to get used to it till we go to sleep and wake up with Venus in a new sign. So that means that that full moon day is likely to be a deeply sensitive, tender, emotional, vulnerable passage. The value, I think, is that as we lead up to the full moon, when the unconscious is getting ready to sort of flower open and give up its, juicy stuff in release form, that having access to our feelings at a deeper level with Venus hanging out in Cancer for the day and a half leading up to the lunation will hopefully foster some emotional awareness. And then just as we're getting to the huzzah of the Leo moon, Venus sort of careens into Leo, sort of with a huzzah, saying, here's the value. Let that emotional pattern go because it's inhibiting you from knowing your gifts and shining them into the world more powerfully. And Venus changing signs into Leo puts into the full moon energy a sense of expansiveness, bravura, a willingness in our heart to sing the song we're meant to sing out there in the world because the planet that rules our emotions has entered the sign that the sun is in, asking us to focus on what are our gifts and how are we going to serve them to the world more powerfully so that the world can benefit. So between the Saturn lessons and the Chiron releases, it's gonna be quite the week for this full moon. When in doubt, just ask yourself, what's holding me back? And then ask yourself the second question, are you ready to let that go now? Have at it.
It's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show. So this week we have an email in dream from Judith. Judith says, I had a dream the other night and I would love for you to tell me what it means. I dreamed that I had purchased an exotic butterfly and I was walking home with it. But for some reason it wasn't in a container. I was carrying it with 2 frying pans. The butterfly was in one frying pan and I was trying to keep the other one turned upside down on the top as a cover. It wasn't working well, and the butterfly kept escaping. I kept reaching up with one of the frying pans like you do a butterfly net, trying to scoop up the butterfly, and then trying to cover it up again. But it wasn't working, and it kept getting out. All of a sudden, I had a lighter in my hand, one of those long ones where you pull the trigger. And for some reason, I put fire in the frying pan that the butterfly was in, and it rolled up into a ball. It was hurt, but not dead. I was horrified because in real life, I would never hurt or kill anything. I'm a vegetarian. So in the dream,
That's adorable. I got it. We trust her. She wouldn't purposely burn up a butterfly or an animal in real
Yeah.
life. Yes, got it.
So in the dream, I immediately put the butterfly in my hand and started giving it Reiki. It fully recovered and flew off, and it was even more beautiful and magnificent than it had been before. In that dream, in that split second after I hurt the butterfly and right before I gave it Reiki, I realized that the only way for me to keep the butterfly was for it to be injured. But I knew that that wasn't the right thing to do. And the right thing to do was for it to be healed, even if that meant that it might fly off again and not be mine anymore. But I knew that hurting it was wrong, and keeping it healed was the right thing to do. Many blessings to you and your staff, Judith.
Yay. Well, thank you, Judith. Thank you. But blessings received. Wow. Interesting. First of all, that last little bit, that interpretation, that sort of lucid interpretation, that's brilliant. Right? That's certainly that's brilliant because this is Judith's, nugget, right? That's Judith
Yeah,
sharing from a deep part in herself what this dream is saying to her, which I don't always get when I'm reading, hearing an email and we can't talk and speak.
right.
It's so I want to start with that the overview of this dream reflecting the notion of you can't keep anything you want unless you give it away. Like that's
Hmm.
just a law. That which we hold on to or hoard fails to thrive. That which is let free flies free. So in some ways, that message in the end of the dream, as Judith sort of coalesced the meaning for herself, it does have something to do. That theme is in there. Let something go and you'll receive more.
Mhm.
But there's a lot more going on in this dream, Judith. Like one thing is you're working with the wrong tools. That's fascinating to me,
Oh,
right? She doesn't need frying pans. She needs
yeah,
a net. She needs something softer, more appropriate to the job at hand. And she's using tools that are more related to sustenance and nurturance. So it's not like she's in the wrong room totally, but it's not the right tool for the job at hand. So
right.
there's something about over efforting or working too hard or over giving, something about using frying pans to do, clunky, heavy, to do something that's better done with light and deft approaches is interesting to me.
Mhm.
Now, the fact that she was able to purchase the butterfly at all means it's hers, right? This is your dream, Judith, and your butterfly, and therefore your connection to the power of change and transformation. But remember, it's not a caterpillar, it's a butterfly, which means it's not the power of Judith transforming, it's the transformations that have already occurred.
Hmm.
So she's kind of like trying to hold on to the ideas of her as having gifts and talents and healing sensibilities through Reiki. But it isn't until she turns to that tool that the butterfly is ultimately saved. In fact, she's got to kill the butterfly first by approaching it with, well, this will feed me, this will feed me, this will feed me. That's a little bit like doing work for its own sort of ego gratification. And then it's like, oh, well, I got to transform it. I got to transform it. I got to transform it. That's the flame. I'm going to light this up. I'm going to burn it and transform it. But we don't need to do that already. Judith, you're already a butterfly. You don't have to burn your old self to be reborn. That's already
Hmm.
happened. So it's not about going back to this has to feed me. This has to feed me. And it's not about having to do the deep work of change and transformation at the level of death and rebirth that a flame would imply. What saves the day? She turns to her gifts
Hmm.
and talents. And she puts that energy, those gifted and talented Reiki like energies of healing, in the direction of the butterfly. And that's what works. The only way for her to save the butterfly is to use the actual right gifts and talents. And that saves the day. So in a podcast episode where we're talking about a Leo full moon, where we're looking to express gratitude for everything we've already created, but then look to what needs to be let go of in order to serve more powerfully. This dream really just expresses that completely. The gift and talent is already in Judith. We know that because she's able to purchase this exotic butterfly. It's already part of her consciousness. But every once in a while, she seeks to feed herself with that attachment to her gifts, or she's overemphasizing change that has to take place, which I don't think needs to happen because it's already done. And just like the full moon is showing us, she discovers in the dream that when she leans into her gifts and talents and lets go of other ideas about that don't really serve, then the butterfly is transformed, the day is saved, and Judith expresses her gifts and talents in the world in a manner that serve and help.
Wow. So would you say Judith is overthinking things in general?
Sure, absolutely. In fact, if Judith were here, that would be sort of my question. Be like, okay, Judith, how do you know yourself to get in your own way? Is it overthinking it? Is there ego involved in how you are approaching your gifts? You know, that can be a difficult thing to sort of grapple with, especially when we feel aligned with our love and our generosity and our sort of givingness, right? To find the nugget that's in the center of that, where our ego is being gratified. But again, Judith isn't here, so these are questions and thoughts for Judith to think about, and I'm sort of positing, what my thoughts would be if this were my dream. But no matter how you slice it, I really believe that this dream and this week's full moon are like a perfect pair.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the Daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.